Hello everyone. So I finished Fall of Avalon a couple of days ago, and it took me a while to really put my thoughts in order when it comes to how I feel about this game. Now, I'll be honest, I jumped in expecting a Skyrim clone. You start in a prison, you break out, you take whatever weapons and armor you can carry, and you're happy as can be with a new world to explore. Now, while most of that was in fact what I experienced, two things caught me off guard. Number one, I found a rather powerful opponent that forced me to actually get good at using the game's fighting mechanics in order to survive the encounter, and I was possessed by the soul of Arthur Pendragon and forcefully thrown into a plotline that enraptured me completely, far more than any secondary missions the game had to offer. Now, Skyrim almost does the same thing, at least with regards to having an epic plotline, but it's nowhere near as forceful, nor does its main plotline do nearly as much to introduce you to the rest of the world of Skyrim. If you only do Skyrim's main questline, you will find that you essentially only leave Whiterun's vicinity for 4 quests, and even the final dungeon is entered through Whiterun's castle, Dragon's Reach. Fall of Avalon has 3 major areas, each with its own suite of side quests and explorable dungeons. The final area is noticeably more incomplete than the others, but that's a question for another time. And the main plotline of the game doesn't just have you visit these other 2 areas, it actually takes you here, makes you explore them, makes you become engrossed with the entirety of the map. Now, it's a noticeably smaller map than Skyrim, but at the same time, the fact that you explore them as part of the main quest makes it feel so much more involved in your journey, so much more critical, so much more important, that it feels like the world of Avalon is bigger. The main questline of Skyrim kind of exists on the same level of importance as every other questline in the game. Many people kind of go the whole game without even engaging with it, whether it be because they choose to, preferring to just explore other areas, or just, achievement hunt, or they just install a bunch of mods and they don't even bother engaging with the main quest after the first time playing the game, of course. Or, maybe they got distracted by a butterfly and they went left instead of right after leaving Hellin. Now, if you choose to explore the world of Avalon, do not get me wrong. This is an extremely rewarding experience. Almost every single dungeon, quest, or even interaction will reward you with some sort of magical item to, actually feel like you didn't just waste your time. But if you try to do this without continuing down the main quest line, one of the first things you'll likely find is the Tomb of Sir Lancelot. It's literally right to the left of where you start the game after you escape prison. And the final resting place of the original Knight of the Round Table, Arthur's trusted friend and wielder of Erendite, is blocked off to you until you continue with the main questline, up to a certain point. You basically need to finish Act 1 in order to access this tomb. And, I'll be honest, the equipment that you will find in here is still way too high level for you. Which, to be fair, this is some of the best equipment in the game. The armor and sword that you get lasted me until the end of the game, and in fact, the sword that you get, Erendite, was the sword that I finished the game with, because I just upgraded a bunch, and it's the second highest damage two-handed weapon in the game, and the effect that it has is so strong that I just couldn't bring myself to use anything else. And you'll kind of find this to be the case throughout the game, by the way. And by the way, this is specifically for my build, which was a two-handed warrior build. You know me, it's what I always go for. But if you're going for an archer build, if you're going for, I don't know if you get a good bow from the dungeons. I don't believe so. But you do get some good spells, you do get some good caster equipment and weapons and armor from the other dungeons of the other Knights of the Round Table, so it's definitely worth exploring. Regardless of all of this, though, regardless of how rewarding other quests are, how interesting they may be, how awesome all of these dungeons are to explore, the most rewarding feature of Fall of Avalon is the main questline, by far. Arthur is such an interesting character, so well voice acted, and just discovering all of the story of this setting that was created, the story of Arthur's arrival on Avalon, the war that followed, the many imperfect resurrections that slowly tore Avalon to pieces and shattered Arthur's own soul. And you get to explore and discover all of this side by side with a version of Arthur that has all of that character and yet doesn't remember any of these things that he did and that were done in his name. Philip Sacramento, the voice actor, did an amazing job. His voice just exudes a level of confidence and warmth and power that elevates the already good writing, making every heartbreak that the once and future king suffers at the hands of his own memories feel that much more visceral. This is kind of something you don't get in Skyrim, I'll be honest. Skyrim, for all the good that it does, being an amazing sandbox RPG just for you to explore, the voice acting has always been something that falls short. And I really do think that if you're talking about a story in a game, voice acting is critical. It's what makes you care about that character. It doesn't matter how good the dialogue is in the script if it's delivered in a monotone way. And I will be honest, the final act of Fall of Avalon, outside of the main storyline, like outside of the main plotline, when you start exploring doing side quests, it does kind of suffer from that. There's definitely a gap in the quality between Act 3 and Act 1 and 2. Which isn't to say it's terrible. It's just very clearly... It needed a little bit more time to cook. But, indie game, you can kind of make an excuse for it. And, as I said, it's only for some of the secondary missions of Act 3 that feel this way. Regardless, by the end of the story, you don't feel like you're just trying to piece this world back together. It feels like you're putting your friend back together. And then it makes the final choice of the ending that much more heartbreaking. Now, spoilers ahead, so, skip to this time if you'd rather avoid those. But the final choice of the game involves either betraying Arthur, siding with Caradoc, the man who broke you out of prison, and slaying the king once and for all, allowing Avalon to finally dictate its own future without the near demigod's interference, allowing Arthur to fully reconstitute for the first time in 600 years, betraying Caradoc in the process, but ensuring that Arthur returns to the throne of Camelot, complete with 600 years worth of hindsight to correct his mistakes, right his wrongs, and punish those who took advantage of his absence. You can also betray both people, take the power for yourself, and become a demigod, and in the process take Avalon for your own, to do with as you please. This is kind of the most open-ended ending, which I feel like is a good thing. If you're going to essentially force your way in and become the main character of this story, I feel like, yeah, you should be allowed to have the fantasy of, yeah, I took over and I made everything good, or I took over and I became a tyrant, or, just being able to headcanon your way into it. I think that that's a good thing. There is a secret ending, which essentially entails you getting your hands on some ancient magics and finding out some secret things about Arthur. Turns out he's not fully human. His soul is actually from the people who inhabited Avalon before the humans did, which are this race of magical creatures with 4 arms, and they're super big. And it turns out Arthur is one of them. And so you use this ancient magic to kind of rebuild him as this creature and send him on his way to go live out his eternity amongst his own people. This kind of does what Caradoc wanted, but Caradoc really just wanted revenge, and so he does get mad at you and he tries to kill you. Doesn't work. At this point, you're kind of so much stronger than him, you just bitch slap him out of the way. And he goes on, and by doing this, his own mother, who was mourning the loss of her son when he came down to Earth and chose to be a human, which caused this super powerful magical plague to ravage the world, she is no longer mourning, and so the plague goes away. The mother isn't doing it on purpose, she's just really sad about losing her son. All that to say, the main story of Fall of Avalon so much more powerfully connected to its game world than almost every other sandbox RPG out there that I've ever played, and I don't think that there's one that I missed when it comes to this. Honestly, I feel like this game deserved to be a Sony game. You know what I mean? Like, massive budget, maybe not so massive, I think that the massive budgets are a bad thing, but like, really high quality cutscenes, amazing voice actor work, fully focused on the cinematic story. That's how good this story was. I feel like it deserved more of a focus. And at the same time, I love the open world and I wish it was bigger, right? And this game kind of ruined games like Skyrim for me. I will not be able to just sit down and play Skyrim after this, because I'll be playing it, and I'll be like, man, the voice work should have been better. Man, this is the main character. Why does he have the same voice as, you know, every other guard? Right? The story, why is the story so bare bones, right? The main plot line. Why am I not exploring more of the world as part of the main plot line? Right? And because of that, it becomes less interesting to me. That's kind of my only regret about this. Right? Because that's what the game is about. It's about regrets. Arthur's mistakes, his regrets, his crimes committed because he had no choice. But he did do those things. And it did come at the cost of those that he held nearest and dearest to his heart. And my one regret in all this is that more games don't have stories as lovingly written as Fall of Avalon. Yeah. Anyway, cheers, guys.